any means necessary.
What you have can save not just America, but this whole planet.
Change is upon our shoulders. It's going to be our job to revolutionize the world. Change will only come through struggle.
Bunt, pogrom, powstanie, most zgnieciona.
In the meantime, we're going to start our commission meetings. This is the Marcellus SHALE Safe Drilling Advisory Commission. Thank you, everyone, for coming. First order of business is approval of the minutes from the June meeting.
I'd like to make my public comment right now.
I'm sorry, we're not having public comment.
Yeah, don't experiment on us, please. It's our health.
Please,
I have an issue with you all debating for hours about the most publicly acceptable way of coming and destroying our homes and poisoning our waters, while we have to sit here and listen to all of it. All of it.
You do not have to sit here and listen to all of it. But I'd like
We
to
do.
sit here.
We have to sit here and listen to all of it, so wait until the very end, when you so magnanimously offer us the scraps of time left to say our little pittance, and then we get to go home and everybody gets to feel happy. Well, you know what? This is what you're talking about. This is what you're talking about flooding our homes with. This is poison. This is mercury. This is uranium. This is radioactive. You're talking about poisoning our waters and poisoning our families and poisoning our land. And I refuse to accept that. I refuse to just sit here and listen while you do that. Okay, a lot of you don't have to deal with the repercussions of this. You get to go home and you get to go back to your cities. Well, when this stuff starts flowing down the Potomac, starts flowing down the river, you're going to feel the repercussions of it. If that Myersville compressor station goes online, you're going to feel the repercussions. If Cove Point goes online, you're going to feel the repercussions of it. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and take this with me because I don't trust y'all to deal with it properly.
We heard you. Thank you.
Because taking it to Ohio and dumping it in their water, that's completely unacceptable. I don't know about all of you, but I say no fracking, no compromise.
Anybody else need a cup of coffee?
Okay. Sure, what's in this stuff? Go down. Okay. So we're holding off on the minutes. Actually, we can put it back. Let me just say, while we have a little bit of downtime, our commission, this is our 30th meeting of a bunch of volunteer commissioners. And our meetings are usually 6 hours long. And we have a lot to get through. We welcome public comment. We welcome having the public here to listen and to advise. We get a lot of letters. We have the MDD website is another way that public comments are accepted. Anyone can log on to the MDD website and send this commission a public comment, and we read them all. So,
since we have downtime, why don't we take public comment now? I mean, that's not going to change anything in the schedule if we're just sitting here doing nothing.
I appreciate you raising your hand. Go ahead. What?
Say your name.
Well, my name is Susan Snow. I'm a resident of Frostburg, Maryland. I live here and I do not want fracking here. I study ecology and various numbers of sciences, and I realize that we're looking at fracking as an economic issue, but this is expanding beyond that. This is going to our social issues. This is going to our health issues. This is going towards our environmental issues, or even our national security issues. If we're going to be sending our fracked gas out there, I met with the representative for Senator Cardin, and he said that Cove Point and fracked gas are two separate issues, and that is just not true. You can't have Cove Point without fracked gas. And I think that what we're doing with this fracking gas, this Marcellus shale, is we're not looking at the big picture. We're not really seeing that this is going to impact every part of our society. That this takes advantage of the poor people who aren't educated and don't really know what they're doing, and these companies come in and they tell them, hey, you know, we have this great way for you to make money, and it destroys their home and their land, and they can't live there and they can't move out because their land is destroyed. And then it takes our environment, creates, these are dissolved solids, like these are totally dissolved. You can't remove this stuff from the water. Once it's in the water, it's not coming out, and you can't just dilute it down. Like, the water is what we live off of. We can't be here alive without water. We are mostly water. And if we're going to poison the land around us just to get some energy, which isn't going to solve the problem, which is going to run out in like 100 years if we are lucky that long, that is a waste of our energy and our time and our efforts to make some money in an economy that is falling apart. Like, it seems to me like if we're going to do something, we should be taking progressive action against all of these issues, the social issues, the economic issues, the environmental issues, like everything. Instead of sitting here talking about one project that is supposed to be solve our energy issues, to solve our energies, this isn't going to be doing this. This seems like some people are going to get rich, which is going to create more social inequality. It's going to cause more social issues. It's going to cause more environmental issues, where there's going to be a whole bunch of people that have to suffer the burden of it. We're going to be the ones here that are going to see the environmental impacts. But we're not going to be seeing the benefits of that if we're going to be shipping it out over at Cove Point. We're not going to be seeing that. If we're going to be fracking gas here, then we need to be using it ourselves, but we don't necessarily need to. We have traditional wells that are supplying for us right now that we use to heat our homes. I'm not saying that natural gas is bad. I'm saying that fracked gas is terrible and bad and has been shown on numerous occasions to take advantage of the people that are living there by higher-up corporations, and it has been shown on numerous occasions to cause environmental impacts that are not reversible. I grew up when I could swim in the Potomac River, but my parents told me about times when you couldn't go in that river, when the Ohio River was on fire from these environmental issues, and we passed laws, Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, to protect our children and ourselves from this, and we're just going to go, oh, who cares? Let these companies just walk over these acts here. Who cares if they're not upheld to these standards anymore? Who cares? Let's just talk about some best management practices, the best that's already happened. The best that's already happened freaking sucks. It sucks. I have not seen one case where frack gas has been beneficial to the community, but there have been numerous cases where it hasn't been. So that's just all I have to say about it. Thank you for listening to me. I know that I'm very passionate about this because this is my home, and I can't just go up and move anywhere else. If this is poisoned and this stuff is happening, I have to live with it. And I'm going to be living with the health issues of that, and my children are going to live with that. And so I also agree with Gabe. I say no fracking, no way. It's way too risky for way too many social, environmental, and all the problems that we are facing right now. This is not just a single scope issue. This is going to affect our entire culture and way of life. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
We can entertain some more comments. Let's try to keep them to a couple of minutes.
Oh, brief?
Eric, why don't you go first and then you, sir?
Well, my version of brief, I know my 3 minutes from here. But I wanted to go back to part of that in that public, because Citizen Shale has submitted, a lot of documents, a lot of questions. I've come to all but 2 meetings. That puts me at 28, not 30 like you guys. Appreciate your time on it. And during that time, I've asked multiple questions. I've sent questions to the departments, and I haven't received answers to all those questions. And I'm wondering, what qualifies a question to receive a response from this commission? What do I need to do as a citizen concerned about the issues and raising some of the things that we've raised over the last 5 years before this commission was ever formed? When do we get answers to the simple questions? Some of them aren't simple, granted, but they are questions that could be you know, blow me off and just say, hey, we don't have an answer, we'll get back to you. You know, we get the chirp, you know, the crickets. And that's just things, you want to have public participation. You want to have people that are coming here. You know, is anything that we're saying, I mean, I know we've seen over time how things have changed as far as the process goes because of some of the questions that have been raised on the public venue side. But, you know, what's happening with this process?
So my take on it, Eric, is that your questions and public questions that come in are all read, they're all considered. We're relying very much on the staff and M.S.D.I.A.C and DNR to evaluate those questions and to take them into consideration. Now, they don't always elicit written responses.
Rarely.
Rarely, and I think that might be appropriate, because otherwise we would never get done. There's so much writing to do. But my other take is that when I look at how things have changed from draft suggestions, draft reports, changes that have been made in response to questions, in response to comments, I think there have been a lot of changes made. And I think that M.S.D.I.A.C, maybe not perfectly, but M.S.D.I.A.C and DNR are listening and are responding and are trying to do a good job. So
I don't think we're questioning the validity of their job and how they're doing it, but I mean, when there's a specific question, I mean, I've asked for, it's been over a year now, and I don't know on how many different venues about the transportation issue, you know, and there's been nothing.
What's that, Eric, what's that question? What's the question?
When will we see, initially, a year ago, we were going to have a transportation study. That has changed to, the department is going to be having a review of the RESI numbers on truck trips as a transportation, I don't know, informational or, but it's not a study anymore. So we're not looking at what those are because most of the impacts from transportation won't occur at the state level, they'll occur at the county level, so it's not a concern of MDE. So we're trying to get to, we want to get their response so that we as a county, because you know, our local commissioners appointed me to be on the county SHALE commission, and transportation has been one of my primaries. And trying to gain information from the state, I mean, I have got nothing.
okay, so let's note down that that's an issue for you and for Citizen Change, and we can work on it offline.
I can reply briefly. We're not doing a traffic study in the sense that we are not engaging an outside consultant to do the study, but MDE is working with state highway and state police and other agencies, and we will, it's in progress. We have nothing to report yet, but we are looking very carefully at the issues of both risk of increased accidents and risk of damage to roads and bridges.
Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Guy. I'm new to Allegheny County and new to this issue, and I've been doing a little reading trying to catch up. And it seems to me that the studies that the governor has initiated he's doing this so that we don't accept unacceptable risk. I'm wondering if that's been defined or quantified. You know, what is unacceptable risk? How do we measure that? If it hasn't been defined, don't you think it ought to be defined so that we can tell whether or not there is unacceptable risk? And if it has been defined and quantified, is it published anywhere so we can take a look at it and see what constitutes unacceptable risk?
It's clearly a judgment call, right? There isn't a number that says higher than this is acceptable, higher than this is unacceptable. We are advising departments as they conduct a risk analysis. It's a qualitative, maybe even semi-quantitative risk analysis. It's been vetted through the commission, the procedure, the risk pathways that are being evaluated, and we hope to see the results of that in a couple of months.
If I can speak to it from a health perspective, it would come of the known health risks, emerging health risks, there's some empirical support for, is birth outcomes within a certain distance of drilling, compressor stations. So you would, at the local level, I think, it would have to be at the local level, weigh those known birth outcome costs, if you will, and you would weigh the benefits that the community might receive, primarily financially, from drilling. We don't really know of a lot of other benefits from this process other than money. And so you would weigh children who were born prematurely or with low birth weight or with birth defects, their lifetime, the cost of their lifetime for special education, for medical intervention, for the lack of employability, for the care for them when their parents are gone, the lifetime of cost to that community against what would be gained financially. So my understanding of health economics is that you actually weigh those two costs, and a full assessment brings us around to looking at that. And I would like to see local politicians who serve us directly address those issues, and weigh those factors, because I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think we're going to be looking at health costs that are now becoming increasingly documented, and how much are you willing, and I am talking about the cost of the environment, that would be part of it too. We lose drinking water, the whole aquifer is polluted as has happened in Texas, and how do you weigh that cost against the few people who will be gaining from that enterprise? And I think, Susan, it's not 100 years, it's 10 to 15 years. Potential benefits that might come. So, I mean, that's my hope as a commissioner, is that we get down to that kind of nitty-gritty decision making. Or, I mean, we're not supposed to be in the political process here, right? We're supposed to be looking at the data, the science. And I hear how much the commission is a political process. I'm not a politician here. I'm someone who is trying to work through a mountain of data that's emerging. Thank goodness, more emerging recently. And advise on that basis. Then after our advice is given, I think this becomes a political process. It's out of our hands, but I don't want to see this commission being political. I want to see the advice that we give based on the facts and the science that are available. And if we don't have best practices because there is no consistent demonstration of superiority of technique, then it can't be part of a risk analysis. You can't quantify that. You can't add that into an equation and make a prediction of risk and cost. So I want us to stay with what we know, do the best advice that we can based on that, remove politics from this aspect, and then when it's out of our hands, we have no control of it, then all of us will need to be involved to ensure that social justice is born, that environmental justice is born, and that health justice is born.
There's so many concerns, and thank you, Ann, for what you said. We all know that there's risks, and every study I've read, scientific study, says most of those risks are not an if, they're a when, that spills, cracking, and well casings, firefighters and emergency responders in other areas have said they are not prepared for the kind of chemicals and things that are going to be coming through the area. And then with the loophole where the industry doesn't have to let you know what chemicals they're using, that makes it even harder. And I just read the letter from the one EMT and firefighter about Cove Point who says there's no way if something happens, we can't fight it. So I'm concerned about that. Studies are out that a certain percentage of well casings will fail, and long term, and this is where we need to think long term instead of short term, most of the well casings will fail. Maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually. And our area, again, we keep letting these boom and bust economies in that are not long-term sustainable economies. And we're the second poorest region in Maryland, and we've had the coal industry. And again, these extractive industries are boom and bust economies that come in, they extract our natural resources, a few people get rich, a lot of the money goes out of the area, and we're kept poor, and we're left here to clean up the mess. We're still cleaning up our streams from decades-old acid mine drainage, and now they're strip mining. And long-term, we have great trout streams, we have beautiful mountains, and we could rely on ecotourism and trout fishing. But we keep attracting these industries that destroy it. And with Savage River watershed represented here and Georges Creek watershed, the taxpayers are cleaning up messes from booming these extractive industries. They've been for decades. And that is what natural resource extraction does. They come in for a little bit of time, a few people get rich, and they leave behind a huge mess. I grew up in Kentucky. I've lived in West Virginia. I've seen it over and over again with the coal industry. And it's a huge mess that the local people are left to clean up, and most of the people in the area stay in poverty. And it's not thinking long term. I like when you take in the whole human cost, the environmental cost. That's what I encourage you to consider, because I hate listening to statistics, because in this best management practice, when we know there is risk, and what this man said, I don't know what the definition, but I personally don't feel like one family's land being ruined or one person poisoned or a well exploding, which we've been seeing, or not the wells, but the flares. The air quality deteriorating. We already have like horrible problems with allergies and asthma with coal-fired plant over the mountain, and we just keep bringing these things that are not positive in the long term, and they're not thinking long term. And I'm a mother, and I think long term. I work with students in the area, so I think long term. I want Allegheny County to be progressing in a positive way, not keep doing the same old thing and bringing these extractive industries in that have spoiled our rivers, our streams, our land, that are blowing up our mountains, ruining our rural area, taking farmland over. So I am totally against fracking, and that's what I would like to say.
Can we get your name?
Amy Fabry. Huh?
You're from Allegheny County?
Yes, I've been here 15 years.
Go ahead. Say, Mr. Roberts, yes.
I really appreciate people coming in and injecting an air of realism here. I think it's really great that you came. But I would say that this governor has publicly declared that there will be fracking in Western Maryland. He said that at the PACE conference in January. He said that on at least 2 other occasions. His presidential campaign held a fundraiser at Angus headquarters in Washington in May, and yet we're sitting here deciding whether there's going to be fracking in Maryland. You know, it's very discouraging for me personally to be sitting in this position. So I appreciate people saying that. But I also want to say that I don't know how many people we got here, and I know there's a lot of people who are not from Allegheny and Garrett County, but look, folks, it's going to take a whole lot more people than this, believe me, to have an impact. And everybody who lives in this county needs to go away from here and get about 20 people to come back to the next meeting, because that's what it's going to take. And it starts by electing the leaders at the local level. You know, we just had elections where the voter turnout was somewhere over 25%. So you get what you vote for, or you get what you don't vote for also. That's the
We're not making the decision as to whether it's acceptable. That's the prerogative of the executive branch, the governor's office. He set up this commission, or they set up this commission to advise the departments, MDE, DNR, together, who are putting together the study that's going to allow the governor's office to make that final decision. And the big question is, we know that there's risk. Is the risk acceptable? we know that there are potential great benefits. So the benefits
What are
have to
these
be weighed
benefits?
against the risks. Not everyone agrees on the benefits, obviously.
Wait, what are the benefits exactly? Will you just clarify that? Because I've heard a lot of different things.
Well, traditionally, I guess when you have a natural resource, be it gold, tin, copper, oil, or gas, then there could be benefits to society for finding out a way to extract that resource and put it to good use.
But wait, what are the benefits?
Empowering our society. We are all addicted to hydrocarbons. I know we want to get off of them, but you have to admit that right now we're addicted to them. We need them.
You didn't walk here today.
I walked here today.
You did?
Yeah.
Do you have a car? Do you have a car?
I do have a car.
Do you heat your house?
I do
That's what
use
he
my
said.
house. I didn't say I was against natural
Yeah.
gas because I use it. I'm saying that unconventional gas drilling is just unacceptable. That's unreasonable.
Well,
and if
and
you
I
guys
guess
sit down
maybe-
here and just be like, we're going to go, all right, well, listen to what you're saying, and so stand up and say, look, the way things are happening is wrong. We're addicted to this. We need to solve this problem. Then solve it. You are the people here who are empowered with the duty of advising. You are the people that have to stand up and say, look, our ethics are telling us that we can't just say these are the best practices. We need to say this is unacceptable. You are the people that are going to have to stand up and do what's hard and advise that this shouldn't happen.
Well, we may actually do that.
That would be awesome, and I would really appreciate
But
that.
we need to get to the end of our process in order to make that what each of us individually.
So that's what we can say. We can say, all of us could say, or some of us could say, we don't believe it's an acceptable risk to the people.
That would be really good to hear.
But on the other hand, the commission is set up with broad expertise and broad points of view. And so don't be disappointed if we don't come to a consensus on that at the end of the day. Because
And your oversight is MPE, which is a regulatory agency. I mean, when you look at the process as a whole, this is about the degree of damage that we will be committing by corporations through the regulatory process, period. I mean, that's what this all boils down to. It's the degree that we will permit.
Not for me. It's still a question to me of whether or if this should be done, and that's an executive order. Now, I started attending commission meetings way before I became a commissioner, but I started doing baseline water quality monitoring as soon as leases started happening in Garrett County. And I've been involved in this as long as the rest of you commissioners have been. I haven't been on the commission long, but I have, Savage River Watershed with Yacht Watershed took the initiative in 2007, 2008 to start getting training on this. We are the ones who actually pushed DNR to begin a baseline water quality monitoring training program. And now water monitoring is going on in Garrett County. And I was told early on, it's just a matter of when it's going to happen. This is going to happen. Don't be naive. Don't be foolish. This will happen out here. All the departments think it's going to happen, and the EDNR think it's going to happen. Governor says it's going to happen. I don't buy that. What has happened in this time period since this commission began is a bulk of the research has been released of the effect, in spite of the industry trying to keep this research from us, in spite of what Dick Cheney did to manipulate the acts that Susan referred to that were supposed to protect us. In spite of all that, here's the iceberg, folks. We're starting, this is what we're hearing now, just in the last 18 months, an amazing amount of health and environmental data. And here's what we don't know. It has been actively suppressed. What's happened in the time period of the governor's moratorium is this has come out. And I think it's a game changer. I don't buy that this is a foregone conclusion. But I think Paul's right. It's not just us here. And even if what's probably going to come out of this commission is a majority and a minority report, there are going to be those of us who say that it is unacceptable risk. Or we don't have enough information to answer that question. then there may be the majority who say, well, with these best practices, yes, we can roll forward.
Okay. I think we're ready to.
Wait, I just have one comment, please. I have to leave soon. I can stay here.
Okay, one very brief comment, and then we need to move on.
3 minutes. I'll have my 3 minutes. Okay, first, when you were saying some of the economic benefits would be to power us, if Cove Point is approved, then the natural gas is going to be exported to a land 5,000 miles away, so that wouldn't be powering us. I'm done with that. My second comment is, you said you're here to advise the DNR, and how are you going to advise the DNR? From a scientist, I want to understand how they would be advised.
Well, DNR and MDE are the two agencies who are ultimately writing the 3 required reports. And we have been for 3 years advising them. We discussed and advised on the first report that came out in December of 2011. We've had ad infinitum discussed and advised on the best practices report that should soon be out. And then, as we'll hear later on today, for the final actions of this commission, we'll advise on the third report, which is the ultimate integrated report. I forget what it's called.
Can you use another word other than advise? I mean, I understand you're advising them, but how are you advising them? What are you advising them?
We're advisory. We're saying, well, let's see, this draft best practice report isn't going far enough here in terms of protection. Here's a good example. The draft best practices report said nothing about certain major watersheds being protected, being off limits to fracking. Now it does. Now it says there will not be, if the best practices report is accepted and followed, there won't be fracking inside of the river watershed and 2 other watersheds. Right? So that's a change that's been made in response to public comment, to discussion in the commission, and to determining, analyzing whether it's reasonable to allow drilling in a major watershed like that, or whether it's reasonable to prohibit it. So that's how we're advising.
So the commission as a whole has already made a determination in advising MDE that it's an unacceptable risk to drill in the savage watershed.
All right. Well, that was fun. We're going to get back onto our agenda.